All right, so today's video, we are doing Reddit reacts. So usually we go on, find some of the top posts. I think a lot of these are from Overwatch University. Some really, really cool questions, subjects, talking about everything in general. So we're just gonna start off right from the Gecko here. So this is was posted a little bit ago. It says Pharah and Hog in medal ranks is getting ridiculous. They say, I need help. Every other match, it's them on the other team, plus Mercy, Kiriko, unintentionally heal botting since no one can keep distance / pressure on Hog, while Pharah is flying around and taking out the backline like nothing. I find these heroes impossible for my team to keep up every time I'm queued against them. Oh, that's what that means. You know, ever like seen like abbreviations that you don't know what they mean? Does that mean I swear to God she will usually die when using her ult than ever? Is that what that means? STG? I never knew that, but like I was trying to put that together. I'm like, what does this mean? Dude, okay, I got it. I figured it out. Look at that. We're so smart. I'm a Widow main, but like Echo, Pharah's air strafing is ridiculous to headshot, and after I miss my first sneaky shot, she's on me and I'm dead in seconds, even while trying to hide. I will say Pharah does have a better opportunity against Widow now. All right. I switched to Sojourn or Sombra if she's being too much, but how can I deal with a Hog that will not die? Most tanks are taking good cover in gold. I mean, so when Hog runs, I can't really chase after unless he's alone or my team is also on him. Because I'll just get hooked in one shot, meleeed, and I feel their supports are forced to heal Hog since he is just able to tank all the shots and not die quickly because of his self-heal. So first of all, I feel like Pharah's always been an issue in some ranks, in medal ranks. I've heard that it's been easier to kill a Pharah now, but Pharah still can make a lot of plays, which I think it's good they made it easier to kill. And then you also talk about how Hog is not able to die. Believe it or not, it's actually been one of my concerns. Hog has been slightly overtuned over time. It doesn't mean that Hog's OP. When you hear overtuned, it doesn't mean that they're in an OP spot. It means that, like, if a bunch of things align, Hog will dominate, right? I think a lot of the problem that people have with Hog is that you need, like, consistent follow-up damage, and a lot of people like to attack Hog at the same time. So if you really want to get a Hog, you probably want to just get your team to go kind of that like on a comp. You said they have a Kiriko, I understand that, but you need to go like a comp that will make it so Hog is not playing well. Now there's the second option where you just go, okay, we're going to leave the Hog to do whatever they want to do and we go for other people on their team. I find that strategy actually works more often than not, rather than just trying to focus the Hog down, because if you aren't getting the team focused on Hog will just survive the whole time, right? So I think for you, the best thing I can recommend is either get your teammates to focus the Hog or worry more about their backline in general and make it harder on their team. On top of that, there's one hero that you did not choose here that I think could be a good recommendation. You said you switched to Sojourn or Sombra. Try like a hero. I was going to say, if you're in medal ranks, you have two heroes here. One, you can go Reaper and all in the Hog. Not my favorite play, but I understand that in medal ranks, Reaper can get more value. Or B, and this is kind of where I would lean towards, go Cassidy. Cassidy has really good burst damage on tanks. It's one of the reasons why Cassidy's played in Orisa comps, is because Cassidy, believe it or not, can play that mid-range and can do a lot of really quick headshot damage. So that's why you see Cassidy against Orisa, because Orisa can fall over fast, and Cassidy has more survivability, and Cassidy can be very tanky against Pharah, so when Pharah has to play more of that mid-range now, because of the way that the Pharah changes have had, Cassidy can help. So my suggestion, if you're willing to learn a hero, or if you have that ability, try Cassidy out. I'm not guaranteeing you wins, but I'm guaranteeing that you'll at least be on a hero that is good against those heroes. Now it's on you to go make those plays. That sound good? I hope that helps. I hope that, like, you kind of understand where I'm going with that. I'm not saying it's going to be a perfect result. I will say that there is frustration when playing against Hog, but I think overall that is still kind of where I would go with that. So, this is an interesting one. How do I convince a heal bot Mercy that he isn't good at Mercy? I have a friend who is a high bronze support who mains Mercy and Lifeweaver. I decided to play a game with him, and in like 5 minutes, he had like 12k healing. I said, Jesus, you have a lot of healing. Yeah, I'm a really good Mercy. What's your damage boost uptime, I ask. What's that mean, he responds. How often do you use damage boost? Oh, I don't use damage boost. You said, and then it said, Mercy's whole point is to damage boost the DPS. Incorrect. I will say, I always talk about, it's a balance of damage boost and heal boost. It is not, you just go on a DPS and hit damage boost. It is a balance. So if you're telling your friend, just damage boost the DPS, that is the exact opposite of what, it's funny because, what's funny about this, is that you're telling your friend that they only should DPS, they should damage boost the DPS while being mad at them for only healing. So you go from one side of what they're doing to the exact opposite side, right? The idea when you play Mercy is that you can help not only damage boost, but keep a teammate alive, right? So you get this good balance. But I also understand, right? And I to give you an idea, I've played healer in WoW. Sometimes you just like seeing numbers go up. So sometimes people's play style is going to be a lot different, right? I think that sometimes what happens with supports is you run into the, oh, my teammates are low, I need to keep them up the whole time. And I get that, especially when you're starting off in like bronze. Like that's exactly how you would play in a lot of games. Like you want to keep your teammates alive. So I think the better advice here is that if you can find a really good balance between heal boost and damage boost, you're going to see good results, right? But just telling your teammate to only damage boost is a part of the problem because then they're just going to damage boost. So anyway, what did I do? Oh, read the rest of the post? Oh, okay. Speaking of reading the rest of the post, that doesn't take away my point because I've seen this discussion happen before. So like, I'll read the rest of the post, but I stopped here because this is also something that actually happens. You get what I'm saying? Like this stuff actually happens regardless, where people are telling Mercies do not heal. So even having that discussion and bringing up that point, I still think is good for this. Anyway, they said, what do you want? So okay. What you just want to only damage boost and let the whole team die? No, I never said that. Well, if you said Mercy's whole point is to damage boost the DPS, it's kind of, even I picked up that vibe a little bit on like, that's what it felt like when you said that. It would have been better if your response to them was like, you know, Mercy is good at both damage boosting and healing, and that should be what it was, right? So like, I still think that like, this is why they got confused there for a second. Then you said, no, I never said that. You said healing doesn't win you fights, it just stops you from losing. No, I'm just talking about, listen. Okay. I'm not going to get too deep in this. I'm just going from what this response to this one is, right? See, this is why Crap told me not to get distracted by chat. Because then they're like, someone goes something and they're like, damn it, chat got me. It happened. What I'm saying is like, I understand their confusion here. And that's why I went on the point here, because even I got a little bit confused by when this was the response, okay? Anyway. Healing doesn't win you fights, it just stops you from losing them. Fair. Okay, I'll damage boost and see how well it goes for us. Proceeds to win next fight. Anyways, how do I convince him that you need to damage boost more without straight up telling him you suck at Mercy, damage boost more? It doesn't mean they suck at Mercy if they just heal a lot. I think you just got to say, hey, if you look at some really good Mercies, the balance of damage boost and healing boost, and I think that's a better way to do it, right? I think a better way to kind of communicate it is that a really good Mercy is really good at both the balance of heal boost and damage boost. So if you can find ways to add damage boost to the way that you play Mercy, while also kind of keeping the playstyle that you want to play, will allow for you to be a much better Mercy, right? Obviously, there's more to that, like good movement, etc. But what you want to do is more along the lines of just be like, hey, you can keep healing people, but I also want you to find ways to kind of bring in some of that damage boost, and that will help you play, because damage boost will allow for you to turn team fights. It doesn't mean stop healing. It means that just add that to kind of like how you play Mercy, and you'll be in a good spot. Does that make sense? So that's why I got confused by the communication of that, of like, Mercy's whole point is to damage boost the DPS, but that's not quite the case. Damage boost is a huge part of the kit, and that's where I want to see more of that. Is like, healing is important with Mercy, but damage boost can also be helpful and can help you win fights. And then you can, there's more of like, explain to them to find the balance of that. You find the balance, you'll be in a good spot. All right? Anyway. Why is Winston good against Zarya? Good question. As a monkey main, one thing I've heard a lot is that he is a good Zarya counter, but I can't figure out why, so I'm probably missing something obvious. I'm going to read all of this before I go into my points. What happens to me when I play Zaryas? When I've played Zaryas, I found it to be neutral. Bad Zaryas are usually easy to deal with, as I just do the same thing I usually do, and dive off anglers / backline, and get picks or just pressure and distract. Then return to the group to help the team with the remaining front line. But if a Zarya bubbles off anglers, I can't burst their bubble fast enough, so I just shield dance, and then it's 50-50 if I need to leap away or can finish them off by the time the bubble is over, unless they are just using the bubble to escape. Although, this is still value, I suppose, as it's a forced bubble making Zarya more vulnerable, as long as my team follow up on it. Okay, I did say I was going to read the whole paragraph, but I have to stop there. What's the problem here? First of all, one, stop trying to burst their bubble. That's the first problem here. The Winston against Zarya is not about the elimination on Zarya. It's about making it so Zarya can't get any value, right? Like, that's what you're doing. Your whole value against a Zarya is making it so the Zarya can't run at your team. You use your bubble to prevent damage to that. Like, basically, the bubble that you have is why it's hard to play a Zarya. You always constantly hear, right? Reinhardt is good against Zarya. Why? Because of the shield. The bubble is a much larger radius of a shield, so when you go Zarya, you have the ability to zap through and do damage to the Zarya. You have the ability to get on squishies because a lot of the time Zarya will be there, but generally what you do is you're preventing the Zarya from getting any value because you're preventing them from doing damage to your team. You're preventing them from being able to get really good bubbles. That's the whole point of it. You're not supposed to get the elim on Zarya, although you can sometimes. You're meant to disrupt the Zarya and make it so they have no fun. And then you say, also, if the enemy team is playing in a big clump with no off-anglers, usually this is actually pretty good. Not as preferable as off-anglers, but not bad, as I can damage everyone all at once, exactly. But with Zarya, when she bubbles, I can't help but charge her as everyone is brawling close to her. What's the problem? See, this goes back to what we've talked about. People are so hard focused on charging a Zarya that people are worried about, a Winston is worried about going into a team of 4 people stacked and is upset that they're going to charge a Zarya. You're going to charge a Zarya. That is okay. That happens sometimes. I'm telling you right now, the reason why a lot of Zaryas will dominate games is not because players are shooting bubbles. Actually, I can't speak for that. I'm sure it's happening. But a lot of players are so focused on not shooting bubbles that Zarya gets too much map control, and no matter what, eventually Zarya gets that energy, and then what do? There's got to be a balance between finding those bubbles. So, like, the way you're explaining Winston so far, yeah, Winston's good against Zarya there. Then if she ults my ult, I'm pretty much dead, as I'm just a massive hitbox that can't move. If you tell me that you can get grab out on an ult and Winston every time, I'll take that every day of the week. If I'm on Winston and you grab me, please, thank you. That perfect. Everything's great here. You've done everything that you want to do against Zarya as Winston. And then your question TLDR was, I'm not saying that this makes you feel like she counters me, just feel like that the matchup is fairly neutral to me, with us being able to make plays that get good value fairly evenly. But given everyone seems to deem Winston as a strong counter for Zarya, there must be something I'm not seeing that should make these matchups easier when it clicks. So I'm hoping someone better than me can help unlock this hidden knowledge and improve my Winston. I actually think you have the right idea here, by the way. I think the problem is you're saying it's 50-50, but what you're not realizing is you're seeing like the value in front of you, but you're not realizing it from a Zarya point of view, that when the Zarya is sitting there and you're bubbling off the Zarya, you're actually giving your whole team more value. So I would say the matchup is more like 60-40 in your favor, but you're not taking that into account. You're talking about all these things that are good that you're not looking at as like good value. You're taking away value from Zarya that your teammates will appreciate and give them more value, but you're not going to actually see that sometimes, right? I think you're playing just fine. I think like you're playing it correctly. I think you're worried about too much, and I think to just keep doing what you're doing and you'll see that. There's sometimes Zarya will get energy. Sometimes you're not going to be able to kill their bubble, and that's fine. It's not about killing the Zarya when you dive in. It's about preventing the Zarya from getting value against the rest of your team. And sometimes as a tank, even though you want to get the eliminate everybody, sometimes that value is just preventing the other team from getting value against your team. And that's just tanking for you. What do you do when your team doesn't take advantage of a well-placed bubble? Let me ask you this question. If your teammates don't take advantage of a well-placed bubble, what is the problem there? There's no problem. You're doing a well-placed bubble. That's your teammates. That's on your teammates at that point. Don't stop doing well-placed bubbles because your teammates aren't following up on your well-placed bubbles. This next question is, why do you care so much about your current rank? Before people guess, no, I'm not a high rank. Not even sure since the rank reset, but I have been a high rank in other games. I've always enjoyed competitive games and winning is fun, but I've never felt bad about not being a high rank. I mostly play the game because I enjoy it. I see a lot of people who are obsessed with their rank, though. The way they describe their rank is like it's tied to their whole self-worth. They get angry at other people, break stuff, and I never got why. Some people just want to improve. I don't see a lot of people accepting where they're at. Take the rank you have, accept that's where you are and how good you are right now. And again, I don't get why. I don't know. I think it's just fun to try to get better at something. You know, obviously you don't want to be, breaking stuff and things like that, but I think it's just like, and it also can depend on a few things. Like, for example, I grew up playing baseball, right? And football, etc., right? There was just this competitive side that I really enjoyed, so I like competitiveness. I like the idea of competition, getting better at things. It's just kind of how I do things. At the same time, if you just enjoy playing in bronze and just having a good time and you don't want to improve, that's totally okay. The idea behind gaming in general is you have a good time with it. You have a fun time. Some people like the competitive side and want to improve and get better. And improving and get better can feel satisfying, right? Obviously, it can be frustrating when you get stuck, but sometimes it's just fun to get better at something, right? I enjoy improving on things that I do, and that's how I play the game. And if you play the game where you just want to vibe out and have fun, that's also totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's more along the lines of like, people are going to play the game differently than how you play it. And, you know, as long as they're not ruining other people's games or stuff or in general, like, you know, let people have fun with how they want to play. I think if just players like to enjoy the way they like to play games. Obviously, you know, when it gets to this point of like breaking stuff, etc., like obviously don't want to get to that point. But some players like to improve. Some players like to play games for fun. Some players like to just play something super casually and just enjoy it as is. And some players like being competitive. And it just like the idea of, hey, I got to this rank in that game, and you know what? I was able to do this while doing a bunch of other stuff, and it felt good to be able to do that, right? Like, some people might just, like, their goal might be plat, and there's nothing wrong with that. Why does Rein feel so dominant in low ranks? As a low plat peak player on all roles, right now I notice that Rein seems to be an absolute menace in a lot of my games. Okay, he is a wall, and this means to me that I should shoot to outmaneuver him and pick off his team before confronting the Rein himself. But this is a huge challenge in my games for some reason. I'd like to avoid team blaming because I don't believe that's helpful, but sometimes it certainly feels like my team is just smacking the wall and getting steamrolled by what is supposed to be the worst tank in the game right now. In some ranks. What is the general strategy for dealing with a problematic Reinhardt, especially one that's aggressive? And why do I feel like he's so hard to deal with in so many games, but like Rein is an actual throw pick in some others? So you said right here, you should shoot to outmaneuver him and pick off his team before confronting the Rein. Right now, if we go into a game in top 500 and a Rein puts their shield up, that shield feels like paper mache. So you already kind of said the problem. You're trying to go behind the Rein and avoid any damage to the Rein. Well, then how does that help your team if the Rein has full shield and it constantly can take map control on your team? Do you see what the problem is here? So I also think, and this has kind of been like my theory on why Rein dominates in lower ranks on top of just being like a hero that like people like to play. People like to play behind a shield. A lot of Overwatch players love the play style of I have a Rein shield to play behind. I can now do what I want and have bad positioning because you're playing behind a Rein shield. It's why you do the flip side of that. Why does Orisa get buffed? Because Orisa is really good, but players don't have a shield to hide behind, so players aren't able to get the same value because they have to play behind a hero that doesn't have a shield. So a lot of players like to play behind a shield, and that is it. That's why you'll hear players in your games go, can we get a shield tank? Because they want a shield. And then players will try to play Sigma, and then they'll get rolled because they're trying to play Sigma like Reinhardt because the players want a shield. Shoot the Rein shield. That is it. Start with that, and you'll see the value you get and how they lose value, because then the players behind the Rein shield lose the value because they want that shield there the whole time. And that's how I see it. That's kind of my theory on it. Why don't you want to use all your ults at once? New player here, something I've seen around. I've been seeing around different tips and educational videos is that if you have a bunch of ults ready, you should be more conservative with them and spread them out. I don't really understand why, though. For context, I come from MOBAs where it's typically the opposite. You want to use all of them because it guarantees a one fight a lot of the time. I mean, this is a pretty easy question to answer. It feels like in Overwatch, there's multiple things that are happening. So, you ready? You're in overtime. You need to cap the first point. You're going to use all your ultimates, right? Okay. You have 4 minutes on the clock. You have one really good ultimate. You use it, and now you have 4 ultimates going into second. You see the difference here? One of them, you need to use all your ultimates because, like, why not? You won't win. The other one is that you have plenty of time. So if you can win with one ultimate, you create this ult economy. So what is one of the toughest things to play against in Overwatch? Teams who always have their ults. And a lot of that comes with ult management. So if you use all your ultimates at once, that gives 2 team fights, 3 team fights for the next team to sit there and ult on you if they use good ult management. That's why ult management is so stressed upon, like, every rank. Is because if you overuse your ultimates, the other team will... If they win with one ultimate, you will constantly be behind and never be able to catch up. So, yeah, you use it for, like, ult management. You want to be able to win team fights. Most maps have multiple team fights. You don't win the map off of one team fight. You win it off of multiple, and a lot of that does come with good ult charge, right? It just does. Why do tanks take so much damage in Overwatch? In almost every game made, A tank sacrifices damage for survivability, but this doesn't seem to be the case in Overwatch. Tanks do the same damage as DPS, slightly more or less depending on the match. This isn't a complaint post, I'm just curious what the thought process is behind it, since I've never really seen this before in a game. Anyone know if Blizzard has ever talked about this? Thanks. Well, actually the funny comment here is actually, I didn't even think about this, but somebody here talks about how, like, PvE is really where you see that with a tank, but in, like, PvP it's a bit different. I never really thought about it that way. You're right. Because the tank that you think about in a game like World of Warcraft is, like, you think about a tank in WoW who's fighting a PvE boss and taking damage, so you absorb damage. Then you have Overwatch, where you have a tank that does damage and can kind of create space. But the funny part is that they still can't find either way to work for people. Like, the tank role, I feel like the tank role is probably one of the most difficult roles to figure out in any game. How do you get players to... The major problem... This is a complete tangent. But how do you get players to play the tank role when the tank role sometimes is basically just sitting there and being a punching bag for the other team, but then because you're not playing perfectly, you become the punching bag for your team too. So tanks are in a unique spot, but why do they take so much damage? I mean, because the hitboxes, they're the frontal of what everybody sees. Like, most players are going to be looking right in front of them. It's the tank. The tank will take the most damage. The Season 9 change made it so you just take more accidental damage. And also on top of that, with being able to be healed less because of the passive, tanks just take a bunch of damage, and that's why tanks struggle right now, is because tanks take too much damage from the hitboxes. They also can't be healed quick enough, and then a lot of players just don't play behind cover, and because of that, you run into a lot of issues. Wow, I misread this. Why do tanks do so much damage? I just wanted to rant about tanks. Can we just go with that? I just needed to rant. I just needed to talk about it. Take two? But great question about why tanks do so much damage in Overwatch. A lot of it is just because, like, you know, now in 5v5, a lot of the playstyle is more of what the traditional off-tank role was, where you're going to do just a lot more damage. So yeah, tanks do a lot of damage because they've tried different variations where, like, a hero like Reinhardt does good damage, but think about Reinhardt. You notice how Reinhardt becomes a punching bag a lot of the time? It's because, like, a lot of Overwatch now is your damage is your space creation, right? Not you're holding your shield up. Overwatch used to be riddled with shields. It was shields everywhere. Players didn't play Overwatch 1 at times because they didn't like playing against shields all day long. So the trade-off was, okay, we make tanks a little bit more of, like, this off-tank play style, and we give them a little bit more brawlability and tankability, and they can do more damage. Problem is, right now, tanks can't get that damage done because you have to get to the people without taking as much damage as you do. So I actually think, like, there's technically less tank damage happening in Overwatch 2, because in Overwatch 1, you had the extra tank doing damage, which meant more tank to the damage. I could be wrong. So, a lot of it is, like, if they made all the tanks just be tanky, kind of like in PvE, like the comment below mentioned, I think the tank role will be played even less. Players just want to get stuff done, and sitting there and holding your shield up and doing nothing is a lot of players don't like that as much. And they want to find a way for players also to enjoy the role. Like, how do you get it? You know, if a player wants to flex queue and they're a DPS player, they might want to flex tank. And if they flex tank, they have heroes they can play. But, like, if they have only Rein to play, then they'll probably play about 4 games and be like, yep, I'm good. Even though I wish Rein was a little bit better. But anyway, yeah, there we go. I hope that's a good question. It's hard to say because, like, I don't know their actual balance philosophy, but I think that's why. As a tank main, how do you deal with teammates getting picked off between team fights? Well, you just sit there. Peak Diamond player back in Overwatch 1 days, getting back to Overwatch 2. Currently around Gold 2. Which I'm mostly okay with since I'm still relearning the game. Also, Alex, thank you for the 12 months of the free process. Thank you. You're right, that is almost a year. Say you're in that lame duck period. You've lost the fight and are trying to regroup. But teammates, both support and DPS who are still alive, just keep poking around the corner and getting picked off before the team can regroup. What do? Do you try to defend them, burn your cooldowns and resources, and simultaneously feed? Or is there a school of thought where you just let them die quickly so they can regroup and spawn? Is there some kind of in-between option? What if 2 teammates poking around the corner try to farm ult while the other 2 are coming from spawn? Like, just right now, in that lame duck period. What is this duck period? On Lijiang Night Market, enemy has the point. I'm calling for a regroup. It's been about 8 to 10 seconds since the fight was conceded, but suddenly, Ana just gets picked off without any reason to be. I honestly wasn't paying as much attention as maybe I should have, but what is my responsibility there? Am I to burn all my shields in her defense matrix and start a team fight with nothing because I blew all the defend and poke fighting? Sometimes it just happens. Your teammates just don't want to be in a good position. My one advice I always go with when it comes to this type of situation, play at the pace of your teammates, and if you can make those adjustments, it will go a lot better for you. What does the number one comment say here? If it's one player and they're generally being stupid, you leave it to them. If it's two players regardless of being stupid, I will go and join them and try to help. There you go. That's actually a good way to put it. Yeah, you just go at the pace of your teammates. If for some reason, like, it's one person, you can't do anything about that. If it ends up being the whole team or, like, most of your team, you just go at the same pace as them. You'll be surprised that, like, if you have 4 aggressive players and 1 passive player, and the passive player decides to play aggressive with the 4 aggressive players, you'd be surprised at how good the results can be. So, you love the next comment? It's better to be stupid together than stupid alone. Great answer. Hot take. All tanks need a Zarya-like mechanic. Hear me out. What if tanks gain ultimate while taking... Oh, no. I say that because we just did a TikTok react to this, didn't we? What if tanks gain ultimate while taking damage? I'm not saying they get as much Dalen damage, but you get some, and if you hit CC, you get a little extra. Then as you get closer to your ultimate, you start glowing red like Zarya. So the trade-off for tanks would be people seeing that you have your ultimate, but that also plays a mind game for enemies. If you hold it, then people will be more wary of being near you. I think this would help solve being so hard-focused while rewarding tanks being hit. This could also help some of the dive characters because if Sombra keeps hacking Doomfist or Ball, they get their ultimate significantly faster. What do you guys think? I like thinking outside the box. I don't think this would work. I just feel like if you incentivize give an ult charge for tanks, there's going to be a min-max that's going to happen. That's going to be, it's just not going to feel good. Like, it's just not going to be a, listen, I love the passion towards this, but I just feel like it isn't going to work. And I get the idea of like, okay, well, how do you make tanks more effective? But like, it just feels like this would just be really scuffed. And honestly, I think it might even make it worse for tanks. Because if you said that, like, if they know you have ultimate because they can see you glowing red, it almost feels like then players can just counterplay you even more. You get what I'm saying? I just feel like it can be a little bit difficult on that one. It just feels like, I get the idea, but yeah. It's just, yeah. So, what do you do as a tank? What do you do as a tank when you're stuck at a choke? Well, you walk through it, but I'll explain in a bit. Hello, people. Often I find myself struggling creating space for my team when I'm trying to clear a choke. But most of the time, you explode if you even poke your head out of the choke. Well, that's just tanking in general. It's rare that my DPS get a pick, which forces the enemies to back up a bit, but in 90% of cases, it comes again in an ultimate and using it to clear the choke. So what do you do as a tank? Just shoot and hope your team gets a pick? Of course I'm trying as well. Wait till the enemy makes a mistake. Wait till my team gets an ultimate. One of the chokes I really struggle with the most is Basan Mecha Base. I think the map where the walls go up on the point. Since there's basically only 2 chokes, what you're able to contest, and if the enemy is even slightly competent, they will hold both of them accordingly to your push. First step. I can give you the strategy. It's called the fake out strategy. You have everybody go to one side, right? You have one person stay there. You have the other 4 go to the other side. You made it through the choke. That's it. Sometimes it takes that, right? But a lot of getting through the choke, and honestly, there technically is 3 chokes, but who really wants to go to the bottom part of the point? I mean, you know what I mean? Like go to the left door. But basically what I'm saying here is that sometimes to get through a choke as a tank, you said you want to sit there and wait. First of all, welcome to Tank right now in Season 10. A lot of it's just a waiting game. You're waiting on your teammates to make a play. You're waiting for something to happen. Part of the game. Second part of this, though, is that getting through a choke sometimes is just get through the choke. And you're going to go, dude, what do you mean, get through the choke? A lot of the reasons why people get stuck in chokes is because they just sit there. And you just take poke damage over and over and over again. And eventually, you can't go through there, so everybody's waiting for something to happen. So eventually, and you can test this out when you play tank, just go through the choke, let your teammates go, I'm pushing in 3, 2, 1. You push through, you get through, you make it through the choke, and then you realize nobody followed you, but at least you tried something. But like, if you're just standing there, you're not creating opportunity for your teammates. And that is why sometimes you just need to get through the choke. And sometimes you'll be surprised. Sometimes you go through the choke and they pop 5 ultimates and you lose, but guess what? They popped 5 ultimates, which goes in favor of your team. Create space for your teammates that way. It's easier said than done. You're going to have times you get rolled. Sometimes you're going to get through a choke and your teammates are going to be mad that you pushed through it, but getting through a choke requires you to just brute force. Like, you may just run right through. Like, just go like right through there and just see what you can do. Easier said than done, but you got to do something sometimes. Otherwise, you will always feel like you're waiting. And keep in mind, I've talked about that. And that's why, like, you've seen that happen in top 500 where I'm like, oh, I feel like I just have to wait. And then I just started being like, you know what? I'm just going to go in. If I sit here and just take poke damage, I will never do anything. I will never have full HP. I will do nothing. So if I go in, at least this creates some type of scenario for my teammates. And now, on to the last question. And some good questions with this one. What am I actually supposed to do? What am I actually supposed to be doing as Sigma? Some of my favorite heroes, Sigma, Junker Queen, Doomfist, are tanks. But I generally have no clue what to do as them. That's fair. I just kill things, but that feels wrong. I mean, as a tank, I mean, that's fine. I know there's more to tank than just killing things, but I don't know what it is. I'm currently gold 2 on tank, and I have no idea how I got there. I know it's probably different from tank to tank, so I'll just ask about Sigma. I essentially just use my abilities to secure kills, correct? I know there's more to it, like cutting out LOS, yep, blocking heals, yes, denying enemies, yes, but I don't understand any of that. I've watched and read multiple guides, but none of them make sense. Okay, I'll try to give you the best explanation for this. Sigma is a space creation type of hero, okay? And that is through your damage. Okay, Reinhardt, you want to be up in their face, right? When you're playing Reinhardt, you're up in their face. You're moving towards them. But when you're playing Sigma, your space creation is your damage, right? Let me ask you a question. If you're playing Sojourn right now, and Sigma shoots shots at you through like an area where you're going, you're at 100 HP now. Are you pushing in? No. You're backing up. And that is why Sigma is such a good tank for that. You have a shield that your teammates can use further back. Right, a lot of players want their Sigma to go up there and use their shield like Rein. No, that's incorrect. You're going to get rolled a lot of the time unless your team is rolling, you push forward, you take the map control. But you deny an area, right? I don't know if you know like some sports terminology, but if you've ever heard of zone defense, think of Sigma as like a zone defense type of like tank, right? The idea of zone is you control your area, right? And you're gonna go for those areas. You see it in multiple different sports. You get what I'm saying? So think of Sigma as like you're playing like a zone defense. You're zoning out an area. You control this area. This is your area. That's how Sigma plays, right? That's what you do. So your damage, your shield, your rocks, your ultimate, all is about you're not up in their face. You have an area of a map you control, and that is the map that they cannot go to. And if they have to get to it, they're gonna take a lot of damage, which opens up a limbs for your teammates. That is Sigma. All right? Zone out an area. Control the area. Use your damage as that control. It is your damage. That is it. Your damage is what controls that area. Your shield is there to protect you, protect your teammates at times, and you can rotate your shield with your eat to build over shields. That is how you play Sigma. That is why maps like Circuit Royale with those straight line like areas. Ever notice that a lot of teams will give up all of first point choke and hold the second corner of first point on Circuit Royale? Because Sigma is denying an area that is beneficial. You're using your damage output to deny the area and give your teammates that creation of space. Does that make sense? Is that a good way to describe it? So you're using your poke damage and your damage to help your team. If your teammate gets a pick and it's like a 5v4, you can push in. If their teammates are backing up, you can push in. But don't try to face tank them. And that's Sigma. Also, practice the aim, projectile. If you figure out the projectiles in Sigma, you're going to have a good time. And there you go. That is the Reddit React. I had a ton of fun with these. Thank you a ton, everybody. Also, we do YouTube comment react, so if you have any questions you want to put in the YouTube comments for this Reddit one, where we also have a YouTube one we do occasionally. We pick up some comments from there, so if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to all 3 YouTubes if you haven't. If you want to, like, go on, if you want to submit some of, like, Reddit reacts you want me to do, go to my Discord. We have plenty of stuff there to submit some content-based stuff. We also record these live on stream. You can see the Twitch chat right below the webcam. We have a lot of fun here, so stop by if you haven't. And with that being said, I hope you have an amazing day/night.